Welcome back to the third episode of Proxy Podcast. First, we're going to jump into the news, and then I will introduce our next guest. Terminal's new map, Sumatra, is picking up more traction as it utilizes the same level of effort and skill that Lacrosse has. If you're familiar with the custom texturing that was done in Lacrosse, then you should be just as excited as me to see this new map come out. Terminal, you're doing great work, man. I love to see the maps that you pump out. Next Sunday, we will have DKH on the show. Be there and be square. It'll be pretty interesting. We'll have lots to talk about. It was interesting and difficult to get the schedule to work, but it will be something to behold. For those who don't know DKH, he, I guess you could say, owned the landscape of the DCL as far as maps for a really long time, and I think is the #1 creator for all core maps. And then, of course, today is the Observatory Tournament. For those who don't know, I typically record on Saturdays. So for those watching, it would be yesterday. So if you're watching Sunday, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, Ronklai, thank you for hosting it, continuing it. It's honestly such a great show to tune into and more importantly, to play in. So I'm pretty excited for that after this podcast. And I think the Observatory does a lot of good things for the community. For those who don't know, this is just a disclaimer. The September release for DXX Rebirth is broken. Just use a comment that's either a month prior, older, or newer. It's the one. It's the one in what's the analogy? Few in the many or something like that. It just doesn't work. So avoid that. I actually had somebody mention it in the DCL server, and it ended up being that problem. So just make sure you use something new. KB is tracking. He is working on that. And then, of course, finally, SNG 1.6, the Leaps and Bounds update, has fully released with all bugs squashed and a whole lot of new features. For those who don't tune in into the Proxy Discord server, where I update my progress, point capture and toggles for all SNG changes are now an option, making it a level competitive choice for those who want to play it. And then for those who don't know, just to refresh your, AR3 is also out with custom texture support, as well as custom models, lots of really cool stuff, as well as vanilla behavior homers. I just played that right before we started recording this. So if you haven't tried that out, make sure to check that out, as it dramatically gives you a different experience, and in my opinion, a better experience. So AR3 is an awesome thing. Arn is a great developer, and it's so good to work alongside him and also look at his work as it comes out each time. But honestly, there really wasn't a lot of news aside from SNG and the comment disclosure. But yeah, that's just about for this. That's just about it for this episode as far as news, which leads us into the intro. And Blarget, you can go ahead and say hi, man.
Hello.
Absolutely. Blarget is, in my opinion, the best map maker to ever use an editor. Whoa, calm down. I know that's crazy, but his modern ability to morph cubes is similar, and his similar addiction to mine, which is Descent, makes him my good friend and map idol. He pioneered mainstream hypercubes and competitive maps, consistently finds bugs, and knows the game inside and out. It's a pleasure and honor to have Blarget on the cast, so thanks to you, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. It's definitely something, because I know in all the recent podcasts your name has been dropped a few times, but you're always pumping out maps. And what was that map that you just released recently? Of course, you just released Metal Garden. But
I released a couple after Metal Garden. I'm gonna have to actually look at the list real quick.
ISS 22. I actually talked about this on the Lee cast.
The single player map for Descent 2. Yeah. That one. I started making that map probably, I want to say 2015, 2016, and then I just kind of stopped working on it. I think it was mainly to do with Devil kept crashing, honestly. But yeah, typical. You select the cube and he faces, crashes. Try to light the map, crashes. I'm very glad for this new level editor. I don't know what I would do without it.
I know,
I,
exactly. I know, and Inferno is so new too. That's the great thing. I mean, he continually rolls out these new updates.
but to answer your question, the most recent map I've made that I finished was um I'm gonna say what Tate. Why do I name my maps this?
You know, I think that's the one. That's the only one I didn't check out.
It's the one where I made a bunch of custom textures based off of Metal O3. I made them all blue, like the blue and purple metal map.
Wow, yeah, I'm going to record my flying around that, put that in the podcast because I have not
All
seen
right.
this map. I have not seen this map yet. Yeah, man, your
Um,
custom texturing is pretty out there, man. Like it's pretty crazy good. Um, uh, what was that map that you made? Metal Garden. So for those who
yeah, those
don't know,
textures. I didn't make those textures though.
right,
Just throw
right.
that out there.
So actually, can you explain? I know how, but can you explain to anyone listening or watching how and what those textures are?
Those textures came from a texture set made from by McCone, and he mainly makes textures for the Quake community. And I've been sitting in their Discord for a while. So, and funnily enough, PyroGX, one of the users in our Discords, is in there constantly as well. And I noticed like these textures, they work really well in Descent. Honestly, even if you're upscaled because there's 64 by 64 pixels instead of like whatever 256 that you can use in Quake. Yeah, they really tile well. So
Yeah, one thing I think you forgot to mention is also the fact that it's not so much textures, but it's also like a giant sheet. I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
think of any other map maker that puts custom textures in like that. I think you actually blew my mind when you mentioned that.
yeah. You can because you can in Descent 2 you can import up to like a 4K sheet. His sheets are only like 1,000 pixels by 1,024 by 1,024. So I just you can import that and then scale it up to 64 by 64 and have very nice, seamless, unique textures going across all the surfaces instead of tiles.
That's seriously cool, man. I didn't know that was possible. And now is that just a rebirth thing or?
It's more than just like I think XL can do. I mean, any of the source ports that can do higher res textures can do this.
So
Descent one can go up
AR3.
to 128. Yeah, Descent one can go up to 128 by 128 safely. But yeah, any of the rebirth based forks can do it.
Okay, that's definitely something to remember. It's retro is it's a little behind as far as the modern capability with textures and everything, and AR3 is coming in. It's definitely an interesting time for map makers, especially when a topic like texture sheets come in play, and Rebirth is something else. Um, I know they
Yeah,
also
I
do like
mean,
different texturing as well.
I was gonna say the I will be using Arn's new tools and stuff, but for the rest of the community, like I want to get as good as I can with the limitations that so like my maps can be played in more than one version. Um, but like those texture sheets thing, I it's just that won't work. It'll work in Descent one, but it won't be as impactful because it can only be two textures by two textures wide. But I plan on using McCone's set definitely in D1 at one point.
Heck yeah, I think that's also really cool, exploring those limitations so that you can play it not only just in sorry, I got a phone call. We put that away. But not only just in Rebirth, but also, like retro, kind of opens up the doors for Observatory if it stays retro 1.4.6
Yeah, or if X7 ever comes out,
or
it'd be
X7,
nice.
yeah. So, kind of leaning into the maps thing, what would you say is your favorite map or alternatively one of yours maybe? If you'd like to give both, that's fine too.
Um, I would actually have to say that these maps I don't play enough. I think, um, Dark Flame Wolf's set of maps that she made back in like 2015 as well.
For XL?
It's like or not XL for Rebirth actually. Like Castle de la Muerte is a really good one. It's pretty symmetrical, but it has a lot of nice pillars and places to hide behind in crevices. She remade Neptune,
Hmm.
and she's beautiful, cute. She's actually one of my biggest inspirations for high cube count geometry detail.
Really?
Honestly, yeah, her
I
stuff
don't
is
think I've
really
seen her
really
map
pretty.
before.
And she makes a lot of custom weapons too, and custom textures. Um, she made this one
Oh
D2 map.
wow.
I forgot its name. It's huge with all these like custom hams with like crazy explosives and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these maps. This is Oh, that's Descent 3. That really tripped me out for a second there.
Yeah, the Chocobo map or the Chocobo farm
Yeah.
map. That was really
Yeah,
good.
that was a really good guess. Yeah, I don't think I've seen her maps before. Hmm. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Put some of the those on the screen as well. Huh.
but
Oh, I
yeah, I
see.
just I don't know
Oh,
if I would
good.
pick any of my own maps. I'm sure somebody has some of my maps as their favorite, but I can't do that to myself.
Yeah, you
I
can. What's your
gotta,
favorite? What's your favorite one?
really, my favorite of my own maps.
Yes.
Shoot.
Too
I
modest.
guess, yeah. I don't know. Metal Garden was pretty. That one made me pretty happy. Like that one came out pretty well. So I'll say Metal Garden
Metal Garden
for
is
now.
probably one of your best maps. Now, I think one that you didn't mention that I think is really good is let me get the name of it real quick. But I wish is it no
Trappist.
Neptune. Neptune.
Uh, Neptune.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
Neptune.
map is out there, man. That map is like insane as far as like the custom textures and the way everything works together, and also kind of the piping that kind of acts as tunneling, similar to that in Metal Garden. You know how those really complex tunnels that you built connect to each other. You know, other sides of the map.
Yeah, that era of me mapping in Devil was a pretty nice era because like I had a lot of friends encouraging me. I was hanging out a lot with let's see, um, Kaizens,
Hmm.
uh, Crazy Enzo, you know, Pygmy, all them folks.
Naphtha too, right?
Yeah, Naphtha,
His
Huskid,
Plutonian Shores is
like
insane.
yeah, man. And we were working on a custom set or custom weapon set that was going to be used in the campaign. I'm not sure if he's going to end up using that set of stuff again, but Naphtha has been pumping out some really good single player stuff recently.
Yeah, I see that he's still map making, or at least I saw it recently. For those
Yep.
who aren't aware, if you want to experience modern single player in a way that is 10 million times better than the original, then I would suggest going and getting Plutonian Shores. How many maps is in it? Like 30?
Something like that. His next set's going to be even bigger. It's going to be like 50 or something
Next set.
stupid.
Really? Is it?
Yeah.
When is
I
it?
think he's been working on it for a while. He live streams it.
Really? I didn't know that. How long has he been
hmm
working on? I know the first one took a long time, like almost a decade, right? Or am I off with that?
I don't remember the exact amount of time, but it was a significant amount of time for him for sure. And this one has been a couple of years in the making as well, I think. But Inferno's definitely speeding it along.
He does really good stuff too. And one thing that I've observed about his maps is it's usually very symmetrical. It's usually very simple in nature, but complicated, when you take in the whole scheme, right? Like if you look at a big room, the geometry is simple, but when all of those simple geometry shapes come together, it forms something extremely complex. Something as simple as,
Yeah.
flying into a big open room. It's all this complicated geometry that's easy to fly through and easy to interact with.
Yeah, he really good at making the geometry big but maintain detail. Like he stays with the Descent 2 like near 20 by 20 level of cube size, but he maintains a very nice aesthetic as well. And there's a couple other maps like the earlier set that him and I were working on, like that I made weapons for him for. That one had like sections where there were huge tunnels going through caverns, like actual cubed out like graded tunnels that you can fly through with supports and everything.
Wow.
And you can see him like dipping his toes back into detail again. In his latest streams, he'd make like cracks in the floor with lava
Hmm.
spewing out, and so yeah, he's getting back there with his aesthetics.
I'm gonna make it a point from this. I'm gonna make it a point from this point forward to make sure to monitor his progress because that's really interesting. I mean, I support anyone willing to make new thing for the game, whether it be development or something as simple as maps. Like maps are an integral part of Descent. Keeping it alive. Making sure there's new content being pumped out.
Uh,
So
as much as I love the movement mechanics in this game, and I love gameplay in this game, if it weren't for the editor, I probably wouldn't be playing anymore.
yeah, that's true. That yeah, it's not like most editors. They give you the editor and you can pretty much. I don't know if you've ever played Sauerbraten. I think we have. I
I
think you have.
did. I did. I
But
started playing
yeah,
that in 2009. Funnily enough, around the same time I joined the Descent community.
I think I might be remembering a conversation we've had in the past, but it's similar to that's pretty much the only other game where the map editor was as like free and for you to develop maps. I mean, it was easy. The controls were easy. You could make really complicated geometry. Where you have other games like freaking. Okay, here's a good
Doom
example:
and I would
Geometry
say I would
Dash.
say yeah, Geometry Dash too. Actually, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Doom and Quake though. As much as limiting as Doom seems because it's just a 2.5D engine, you draw your sectors top and down. They have a significant more open engine when it comes to modifying things and scripting than Descent, for example. Like you can
Not
do
as
some crazy
localized,
stuff.
right?
Yeah, like there's a lot more script hooks that
Hmm.
the scripting language like to the core of the engine. They can do some crazy stuff. I mean, you've probably seen the Descent mod
Yeah,
inside of
I have seen that.
inside of Doom. That was insane. And Quake itself, also the BSP editor is pretty good. Like, there's a lot of creativity for early shooters, and I really wish that game developers. There's some game developers throughout the years that attempted to make fun editors that people can play with. Like you have Forge and Halo,
Hmm.
and you have things like Far Cry's editor, but like they always kind of fell flat. There's limiting factors that didn't feel as creative. Like you're forced to play with either a playset or something that just felt very limiting. The old school games had
Yeah.
a lot better creativity behind
Yeah,
it.
nowadays it's not as simple. Some
There's a
games are
couple of
restricted by like
games.
Unity. It gets pretty messy.
Yeah, you got games that really attempt to do it, but they fail on either the social side, like Roblox, really good
Yeah,
creativity and for the community, but like very toxic at the same time. Um,
yeah. Most people aren't familiar with the corruption that goes on with that community.
yeah, I mean those, but like, it's just few and far in between. Games nowadays do not go this far. And
Point.
but back to the Cyberpunk example, though, that game has a live cooperative love letter. Imagine being able to fly around the descent map and shoot the level editor guy while
Now,
he's trying to make a map.
now I'm thinking it was me and you that was doing that. Because
Yeah,
I think me and you did do a cooperative map making
I
session. That
probably
was like 3 years ago.
I probably showed you the mechanics and stuff and showed you how the Hell Marching Cube system works. It's pretty
I
cool.
I'm pretty sure it was you, because I had the game and I mentioned it, and you were like, "Hey, let's make a map together." Because
Yeah,
I do remember a lot from that playthrough. Just being able to make things like literally just bring things out of the ground. Kind of like Minecraft creative mode. You were in third person making stuff. That's something I dreamt about one time with Descent. Just being able to make things.
just pull
Third
things
person.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
is and the funny you should mention the whole pulling cube out thing. That is what inspired me to be like, you know what? I've been making descent maps since I was like 5 years old. My brother threw me on Devil when I was a very young kid, and I was just kind of modifying and extruding cubes. And I've been always told by my brother, you should never make inverted geometry because it'll break the game. So I was so scared to. And then Sauerbond came along, like, oh, I can just scroll up and geometry pops
Yeah.
out. And I go back into the set and I'm like, what can I do to make inverted geometry safe for the community? And you just put a fucking wall. Okay, maybe cut off.
No, I mean that's here. That's a really good segue into something I wanted to say. When it comes to your map making, and your ability to map make, or, excuse me, make maps. My favorite thing about your map making and the stuff that you made is that you're not afraid to try things that either are controversial or supposedly impossible, right? Like you're manipulating these vanilla textures and making them look like brand new textures, or you're putting triggers in the map. These are the type of things that most map creators don't even. It's not that they think, but not only do they not think, but also are too. They just don't want to invest that much effort into it. You know, if I did know how to do any of the stuff you do, I probably wouldn't do it because it requires so much work, and I've always respected that about your map making ability. Like for instance, the trigger in I don't know, or um, some Aztec, the sky, the fact that you were able to make a sky and you were able to put those custom textures in, it's just those small details, man. And I really appreciate that about your work effort and the product that you've produced in your maps.
It's funny you should mention the effort part. Like I would say it like this is the bad part about me. I'm really good and quick about learning things and doing things very quickly and enjoying it. And because of my ADHD, I have like thousands of unfinished maps, probably lost to the world because the hard drives are gone, right?
Yeah.
So all the end result products you're seeing are really just the brute forceness of an ADHD person constantly trying something until it finishes. And so these maps, I'm not spending months or weeks making these maps. I can only really have the attention span to finish a map in a day or two, really. So
Yeah.
like that's I had to change my work ethic in a way where I can speed run things, and that's what makes me enjoy it. Like when I do 40-hour game jams, that's where I thrive the most making art.
Wow.
Like 2 days to make an entire game's worth of art.
Are you
Um,
talking about on Game Jolt?
well, not specifically Game Jolt. Like back in the day, there was one called Bacon Game Jam I did where I made all the sounds, music, sprites, UI design, like literally everything, all the animations for a little game called Rainbow Arena. And that was a 2-day event. Things like that. That's the stuff that really gets my creative juices going because it's really hard to get me to focus. Actually, really hard to keep me on track.
No, I totally understand that. One thing that's I think is common with map making is you kind of have to run on that idea, unless you have it all orchestrated on paper, like DKH. You know, it's difficult to keep running on that idea, and then if you log off or go to sleep for the night, be able to replicate that same thing again later in the day. So I totally 100% understand what you're saying. I've closed down streams in frustration that I lost my creativity.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And it's really frustrating when a level editor crashes. You got really far into something, and
Did
you
the
just don't want to
same.
recreate it. Yeah, and you just don't want to recreate it because like it hurt too much.
Luckily, Inferno
Because
doesn't crash as much.
especially when it takes so much effort to get yourself to do things. Yeah, it hurts.
Absolutely. So, how long have you been playing this game? How long have you been playing Descent?
Since I was 3 years old.
3 years old. Wow.
So I was born in '94. That's when the shareware was released, right? My dad picked up a CD with multiple games on it, like demo CD. I had like Midtown Madness 1 or Motocross Madness 1, Descent 2, and some other demo. And very quickly after, my brother Jonathan convinced my father to buy Descent 1 and 2. And the next thing I know, within like a week, my entire family, all 8 of us, are in the basement on PCs playing Land Descent with each other. Even my mother, even though she didn't like it. But
Wow.
yeah, and we all had default controls back then, which was A forward, Z back, S
No.
boost, you know,
No. No. Keyboard and
arrow
mouse, man.
keys, arrow keys to look around. It was atrocious. We
I
were
would.
slow,
I would
but we
never want to use. I would never want to play this game if I was restricted to freaking keyboard only.
man back then was so funny. We were
So
such bad pilots.
obviously, you love this game, right? That's definitely not in question.
Yeah.
What is it about this game that you love? Like, what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you making maps?
It was just the very first game that had full creative control that over it, and I was always curious to modify games as a child. And like I said, I was 3 years old when I was raised on this game. The first 3 games that I really put time in was Red Alert 1, Descent, and King's Quest 2 or 1, one of the two. learning to type words and stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
Like those three games were really like, and a couple other small little things like Math Blaster and stuff, but it was mainly just those three. And Red Alert had a level editor, but it was like just placing sprite tiles down that gave rules like you can't go across over this, and it was really just a flat game. I mean, yeah, it's fun, but yeah. And another early example of me modifying things was a little game called Hot Wheels Stunt Track Driver. You could change the UV maps, or you could change the textures on the cars and give your own custom little Matchbox cars. That was fun. But yeah, this game, to answer the question more fully, it's just the movement was so good as I grew up with it. I enjoyed it more and more because I learned more and more about it, the physics and stuff. And other games just kind of came and go really quick. People got bored of them. I had friends who would play console games with me, and then we'd just move on to the next thing. But Descent was always on my hard drive, and I can come back home, and when I'm alone, I'd be like, hey, look, I can make maps and stuff. And I would try to bug my brothers to play them, and I would annoy the crap out of them because I'd add 2 or 3 cubes, convince them to go in a match, play with me for like 5 minutes, like, ooh, I want to add another thing, and then they just stopped playing with me after a while because they got frustrated at having to wait for me to modify the maps so we could keep playing.
Yeah, it definitely goes back. Would you say there's
Yeah.
maybe some nostalgia in that as well? You know, kind of
Oh
keeping it.
yeah, for sure. And it's possible that my I'm fairly neurodivergent, or yeah, divergent, I guess is the right political correct term. I'm fairly neurodivergent. I'm not just ADHD. So there's just something about this game that scratches an itch for me that keeps me breathing, I guess. Um, it's really calming. There's a term in the autistic community called stemming. I don't know if you've heard it, where
No,
like
I haven't.
you and I attempt to like organize that itch. I like, and just flying around in Descent really helps me calm myself down for sure.
Wow. No, that's pretty awesome, man. I mean, it's really good to find those things that help you and channel them in a healthy way, you know. And
Yeah,
your maps are really good, so I can tell that you really enjoy it. And I'm just glad to have you in the community, you know, pumping out these things.
appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. For those who don't know, well, mostly because it hasn't been released yet, Blarget's actually working on a map for point control for Descent SNG. Um,
I'm in it
and
right now.
oh yeah, is that what you're working on right now?
Yeah.
Oh wow. But no, it's a really good map. He perfectly encapsulated what I thought would be a good concept for it. For those who don't know or you know haven't downloaded it yet, it's basically just King of the Hill survival, and your goal is to collect a certain amount of points before the other pilot. And if you do, the game ends. So basically, a different way of the game being scored. And Blarget actually, I asked him if he was willing to do that, and he was more than willing to. And the map is coming out great so far. It's like a little center in the middle, and it's like a he made a circle. This man made a circle in Descent, and the whole thing is like a circular dome, kind of like a from a top to bottom squished circle. So it's kind of ovally, but it's an awesome map, and I'm really excited to see it officially played. And just another example of what he provides to the community as far as especially to newer content and pushing out new ideas and attached you know going from that, Barget has actually been pushing the game way before it was cool. He's been working on custom weapons, custom textures. Could you elaborate a little on that?
Oh, you like using the old tools? Yeah. Oh god, I hated having to have like you've complained about this before. I hate having to have a virtual machine on my desktop
Yeah,
and going
yeah.
in there and having to get them all set up to only
So
open up the
frustrating.
thing and have it yell at you Yamaha.txb or whatever the font is not, we cannot run this executable unless you have this font.
Yeah,
What? Okay, alright, installs font. You need this other font. Ah!
it's ridiculous. It really is.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad there's new tools, man, because those old tools were just so frustrating.
Apparently,
And just getting,
Parabolicus made a tool recently. I heard something about
oh,
that
interesting.
for editing. Basically, what Yamaha does, I just don't think to a perfect T.
Well, Yamaha is just a font.
Oh, I was under the understanding. That it was like a TXB reader. Is that not right?
No, there's also a TXB reader, and it also requires Yamaha to
Oh, so that's how I
run.
confused it. Okay, because I
It's
was
possible.
trying to figure out a way
E-
to do it.
Level Viewer also has that issue, and Polyview, and the Robot Editor.
Those are all
They all have that
Descent 2
issue.
tools, right? Or the website Descent 2.
Yeah, yeah. There's Descent One tools as well. I think. With the DTX, yeah. There's DTX and DTX two. For
Yeah,
at least custom sprites and sound.
I have to use a VM just to freaking fire up that program, man.
Yep. There was a compatible Windows XP version of DTX two, but it was never recompiled for Windows 7 and above.
Yeah, I think Lee might be the only person on Earth who does it still with like just a native OS.
Yeah, that's crazy. Actually crazy. Um, yeah, I'm just these new tools. I will never go back. Never going back.
They are really cool, man. Inferno definitely opened up the world to modern editing, especially with tunnel building. I just announced it in the last podcast for Proxy One, but it
Yeah, it
has
took them a
tunnel
bit.
building now, as well as extra, as well as custom textures and icons. It's just really good to see, man. You don't have to rely on DLE for everything. I love the program, but you know.
Yeah, all you need now is Inferno and D1W or D2W, and you're pretty much set.
Yep, pretty much everything. Arn making D1W and Proxy One making Inferno. I don't think Arn
And
made DW2
D2W,
though.
yeah, D2W is made by
Salad?
our our Lord and Savior Insanity Bringer.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy also is, because he's the one who initially came on to that Discord before it stopped being the Rebirth Discord when it got renamed to the Descent Development Discord. He was the one in there like constantly posting his tools and stuff, because it was I was talking to him like 2015. That's when he started working on or 2017, somewhere around there, when he started working on D2W, or back then it was called a completely different name, but I think it was called Piggy Dump, Pygmy, or something
Oh,
like that.
libpig.
Something like that.
It's like the
And then he
library.
made
Yeah.
he made libdescent, which is his
Yep.
library that he uses to create the tools, and he was also going to test the waters of using that library to make a whole new descent. With just that, the only thing that it would do is load the assets, and everything else would be custom code. It wouldn't actually be a source port. It'd be more akin to. Have you heard of the project OpenRA? It's a quote unquote source port slash engine that's called a red alert engine, and I would
Hmm.
consider this in this new editor, or this new version. It was called Net Descent, but he decided to stop working on it, sadly, mainly
Okay.
because Inferno editor is being worked on, and he wants to focus on crispy descent. So
Yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. Uh, I haven't seen
yeah,
much
same.
progress on that recently. I think he might be occupied with other projects. I know he's also really busy,
Yeah.
but definitely awesome to watch his work. I actually was talking about his excuse me, his let's see here. So he made Inject D3. He also made Chocolate Descent. Chocolate Descent's really cool. It's just like a true to port version of Descent. Descent HMP Converter, Descent 2 Workshop, DLE.net. Oh, never mind. Those are the current maintainers. Okay, cool. But yeah, he's done a lot of really, really cool stuff, and definitely fun to watch his progress. But going back into discussion, and as far as hanging on to it for so long, why do you think not as much people play it nowadays? Like, why do you think people part ways from that?
Just like any game, really. Most people just grow bored of it. Or it's either that or just community issues. It's like any game. There's always a slew of a mix of either an emotional attachment that gets broken, or they just get bored of the gameplay, or
Yeah.
move on to something that's more enjoyable. Like for a long time, like I hyper focus on games, but then like I constantly have to change what I'm doing. So for a long time, I was making Trackmania maps. I probably within the last 3 years pumped out 400 Trackmania maps because like that game loop is amazing. It's one of the best racing games on the market. So I just
I haven't heard
kind of
of that
grabbed my
game
attention.
actually.
Yeah, Trackmania. It's a series. It's a series of games that's been around since the early 2000s.
Hmm.
But highly recommend it. Good level editor.
So it seems like you play a lot of games. It's not just Descent.
Yeah,
Do you have
I
other
played a
games
fair
that
amount.
you prefer more than Descent, or is it number one, top tier?
Yeah, no, it's still number one. I have I like CS:GO a bit. I don't really play actual shooters much anymore because I've slowly lost the love of throwing slugs of metal into other people's brains. You know, it's just not for me anymore. Um, I'll still get on CS:GO occasionally, play with friends, and I'll play Apex Legends because I like the movement mechanics and the team play is really good. The team comp is really enjoyable. But when it really comes down to it, what I'm enjoying more now is things that are racing games or just games with good movement in general. I love watching speedrunning, so
So we've talked a lot about level editors here, so I'm gonna tag on to that a little bit because I have something that I don't fully comprehend yet. What is it about Devil that you stay so loyal to it for?
before Inferno came out and completely made it completely irrelevant, um, I'd say it's just it had a lot of universal tools like relative tools that made it feel like a modern tool kit. Like this editor was made in the 90s, right? And it had universal right click commands. So if you right clicked any menu button on any of the things like side, for example, except for insert. This was the only thing it didn't work with. Everything but insert, you could right click and like right click texture in the menu and it would change all tagged objects. So left click, if you left click any menu button, it would only change what you have selected, and right click changed everything that was tagged. Um, and there's just other little things, quality of life things that allowed me to pump out geometry very, very quickly.
Hmm.
Inferno was a lot quicker, but I still felt like the workflow was a lot faster than DLE or DMB or even Miner, if anybody still used that.
No, I really doubt anybody does, but DLE has and had a lot of problems. I think its probably only redeeming factor is that it's modern. It's modern. What would be a good way to say this? It stayed
Right.
modern, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Just
it was always being updated, and there's bug fixes, and Sirius has done a great job maintaining it.
absolutely.
But at its core, I would say it just has a lot of fundamental workflow flaws. It's just its core UI is not indicative of a good editor.
Yeah, and it's based
So
off of Miner, right? Or
no, it's based
DMB?
off in DMB. Yeah, DMB
Okay,
two. Yeah.
that's right. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of good stuff. I mean, some people don't even know that it also ports to overload maps. So it ports to overload maps. It was way ahead of Devil and Inferno as far as DTXs. I mean, it gave you the ability to change those. However, Inferno one upped them when they added the ability to add custom textures as well as change custom icons. So another reason why another reason why
Sprites.
Inferno's on top of the
Yeah.
game. I mean, before Inferno Editor allowing you to do that, you had to use a VM and download either XP for a certain version, or you had to use Windows 3.1, and that was a nightmare, and I hated doing that.
And D1W is fairly recent, but you can also do it with that now, which is
That's
nice.
local though. I'm talking about permission. It's like you can change it for anyone who's in the game, regardless of if they have the file or not, or the
You
mission.
can't you can't edit DTX files with I thought you could edit DTX
No,
files with D1W. Huh.
I don't think so. Let me make sure. I could be wrong. Let's
That'd be
see.
unfortunate.
Yeah, as
Um,
far as I know, it's the only thing that it can't do. Yeah, it can't. It can't. It can do POF, FNT, HOG, SS or XXX, PIG, ham, VHAM, HXM, basically everything but DTX.
HXM is a D2 thing. I'm not
Oh
sure
yeah, sorry.
D1 would even load that.
Saying
That's
D1W. We're talking about D1W. That's great.
Oh, you're in D2W. I was confused for a second. Like, you can export to HXM
Yeah,
and
it only does
that'd be weird.
pigs, hogs, POF, and FNT. It's unfortunate, really.
POF can hold a good amount of information, but it's a lot more limited than the DTX. But that's where you can store robot models and stuff, I think.
Really? Ooh, wait, so could you, like, change the model of the Pyro with that?
A POF? I think I might be wrong about this. Don't quote me.
Quoting.
Quoting. I mean, yeah, podcast, but yeah.
Shoot, man, I actually want to look at that because I've never seen a POF before.
I'm not exactly sure what goes into POF because I don't use them personally, but I know they can store some interesting stuff.
So let's see here. Who is, according to you, the most underrated map maker?
Most underrated map maker. Probably Dark Flame Wolf as well. I know it's lame giving you the same answer, but
No.
And she had a peak of popularity at least within the Rangers for a year or so, but like, yeah, her maps just don't get played, and that's unfortunate.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, we was looking at some of her maps earlier in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What one of her maps do you think is probably her best? If you could choose.
I forgot the exact name, but it's something like a storage facility. That one was really cool. There's like crates everywhere, and she inspired me to make stairs in my maps. It wasn't really a stair, but like she did these 10x10 stairs. They're pretty cool.
Who was it? Somebody made a comment recently. I don't remember if it was on a previous podcast or like in a Discord chat. Somebody said something about your stairs. He said it was like, oh, and Blarget stairs too. I mean, that's right. One of the things I wanted to talk about. Opadias. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
on the topic of stairs as well. If you have not checked out Opadias, you need to check out Opadias. One of my favorite maps, easily top 3. And it's super. Nobody really talks about it, but for those actually looking for gameplay with it, you can actually go to the most recent Observatory tournament, aside from the one airing tonight. I actually played Lee in that map in like a semifinals or something like that, and the flow is amazing. The geometry looks great. The textures are really nice. The stairs are there, of course. It's just another good example of some stuff that he puts out. But I'm gonna put on the screen here and show you what the stairs look like, and some of these doors geometry as well. The stairs looks really cool, man. I know I'm kind of fanboying over the stairs a little bit here, but it's really good stuff.
I would consider better stairs in the map Arstoska.
Let's see, Arstoska. Oh, that's the one you just recently made, right?
Yeah, it's one of my recent maps. I made that after Middle Garden. I think this is the map I made right after Middle Garden. This was the map I wanted to really test. I really wanted to push the limits of the default texture set, try unique combinations of things, even though it still looks pretty gray and stuff. Because I love the gray textures. What can I say? They just have good tileability and good trims. So.
Man, you gotta port this stuff to D1, man. I'm trying to get it and play it. D1.
It is a D1 map, isn't it?
I was referring to Metal Garden.
Oh yeah, that one's gonna take a little bit more work because of the texture sheets being too big. You have to redo some of the textures.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I might do it. It's just not sure if it would flow good without a boost, like without a afterburner. But.
So, in the same topic of maps, could you talk a little bit about, and I know you've been passionate and you've been doing this a lot lately, but could you tell us a little bit about your glitches and discoveries that you've made in the game, and maybe even refer to that Reddit post that you posted recently?
Yeah, so I did. At first, I was kind of hesitant to talk about this latest bug I found because it could be abused in multiplayer. I'm
Sure.
sure people won't because a lot of this community is honor based anyways. So like
Sure.
that would happen. But if you people that play Descent, of course, will already know that the game has sticky walls. You know, the collision isn't the best coded in the world. I'll say that. I'll also say though that not many games can get angled geometry right properly. Anyways, like even AAA studios pump out games nowadays, and you'll find speedrunners who mostly abused angled geometry or some type of awkward intersection. It's never usually the 90-degree angles,
Hmm.
but even in Descent, the 90-degree angles are sticky because they're each wall is like an independent collider, and there's portals for each cube, and for some reason that collider kind of sticks out a little bit, and like the game decides which one you're supposed to be in, so like constantly snap you back and forth as you're flying around the corners and stuff.
Hmm.
But if you get a really awkward corner, weird awkward intersection, the more awkward the angle, usually the further out that collider sticks. But anyways, so enough about the collision model. I discovered that if you spam the hood button or the cockpit button, as we would call it in Descent, um, sometimes, and not every time, because sometimes the game will fix this, but sometimes you can stack your momentum. It'll just kind of like hang, and as you're hanging, it'll stack the vectors over and over and over again, like almost
Hmm.
every single tick that you're spamming the cockpit button, and you can get a lot of momentum very quickly if you do it correctly against certain bits of geometry that I was referencing earlier. If you're stuck inside of a cube and you start spamming it, sometimes it will teleport you to a completely different section of the map. This
Wow.
trick is usually called out of bounds in most games. I wouldn't really consider it out of bounds because you're only like half out of bounds for the initiation, and then like the next tick,
Okay.
you're already in another cube. So it's more of a teleportation. But yeah,
No, it's really cool. I know in the example that you posted on Reddit, you basically you skip through the red door without the red key. Um,
sort of. I wanted to skip through the red door in the video. If you see where I teleport, I actually go to the red key room, which is not where I wanted to go, but it's even further away, which is really awkward. I guess I bounced off of the wall and went down, but I was definitely looking for a door break there for sure.
that's really cool stuff, man. I mean, it's honestly good to know that people are still going at the bugs. And honestly, I think we talked about this maybe like a day or two ago, but some of these bugs might actually be usable in a speed run scenario. It might
Oh yeah,
actually speed up time, or if someone can perfect it and be reliable with it, do some really cool stuff.
there's not many people that like speedrunning the set. Who's Kid, Fozon, and Spoody, to name a few. Um, and I think Fozon has world record right now, and I think he got it like 4 years ago
Hmm.
or 8 years ago,
Wow.
something like that. And there's been a couple other times from 4 years ago, but there hasn't been much interest at all. I'm hoping like me finding some new glitches would at least get one of them to be interested in trying out some runs or some ILs, just out of curiosity, if anything. But I'm not too hopeful that the speedrunning community is going to get resparked. It'd be cool though.
Yeah, I don't really see much speedrunning activity. Although I have seen that video. What is it called? Games Done Quick or something like that, where Spoody
Hmm.
went and represented the community. Let's go, Spoody! But
Yeah, it's
he
awesome.
actually represented the community, and he speedrun the game, and that was really awesome to see. I feel like competitive descent could actually be successful in a venue type environment like that.
Like even Smash Bros. Style.
Yeah, like Smash
Yeah.
Bros. Style. I know this is literally no one on like no one on earth would know about this except for some of the people within the community. But Jedi Luke and a few others had actually recommended that we go to San Antonio to play in a venue that was asking for people to represent their games and stuff. And we really thought about it, but I think the
Was it
cost
like a
was
retro land venue or something?
no.
Like a bunch of games?
I don't. I wish I had more information on it. But basically, it was exactly like it sounded. It was like if you want to come by and play and like showcase, you can host out a venue and like play. And
Hmm.
like I said, I wish I knew exactly what it was, but we were all looking at it together as a community, and we all agreed that the cost wouldn't be too bad. But I'm not sure what got in the way. I think it was just that people wasn't able to take off of work. I think, and that happens to be sometimes the biggest biggest reason not to be able to. But
Yeah.
um, it was really interesting, because I mean, when you really think about it, think about like the observatory, like in a actual mainstream, competitive way. I feel like it would work.
It would be pretty neat to actually have a bunch of computers in a huge room and us play on a LAN. That'd be so cool.
Oh well,
Like we
lands
do
that's pretty
LANs,
common.
we already do LANs, but like on the scale of what you're talking about would be awesome. And it's happened once in the Descent community's life. Back before Descent 3's release, I believe there was a huge Descent 2 tournament.
Wow, I see. I didn't even
I
know that.
think I think that's correct. I might be wrong about that, or the context, but I do know there was at least one huge event where there was a couple hundred people playing Descent.
Man, I wish I was a part of that, part of the community and got to experience the uproar that was Descent, during that time. Because what the time you had
Yeah,
what Doom?
I was a child back then, dude. So like I didn't even know about that. Back when they were having fun doing their huge tournaments, I was in my dad's lap watching him play Red Alert 2 or something or Red Alert 1. So
Hmm. But at the same time, though, I'm really happy to be a part of what the community is now. Just people self-sustaining the game. Keeping it alive, and I'm fine with that too.
yeah.
I feel like Descent has
Oh,
a really good spread of community. It's not large, but it is definitely loyal.
random side tangent. I really wish the spread fire was an animation. There is a blue orb with 6 sprites, and it looks so smooth. And another enemy uses it, and it's basically spread fire. But the actual spread fire the player uses is one frame.
It doesn't really.
It doesn't have an animation. It just moves
Hmm.
so fast most people don't notice. But yeah, there's no animation to the spread fire.
Wow. That kind of
Yep.
sucks, actually. Does the Helix have an animation?
I'm not sure. It might. But yeah, I just noticed like when I went to go change the colors of the sprite, I made it purple by the way.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Hell yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
And that's with Inferno Editor, right?
Yeah, with
So,
Inferno Editor.
so cool, dude. I love Inferno Editor. Thank you, Proxy One, man, for blessing us with Inferno Editor.
So good.
I haven't been doing much map editing, but I definitely got to get back on that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else that I've gotten on the editor are making maps right now. Like Kaizen's making maps, Matha's making maps. Yeah, getting on that, bro.
Terminal is another big one. Dude came out of nowhere
I
and
mean,
started making maps.
I didn't get him on it, but yeah, for sure.
If you could ask Mike and Matt Koulis something, what would it be?
Oh, um, do you feel like you regret not adding co-op to Overload?
Not a Descent related question, huh?
Yeah, I know. I really feel like they would because like as much as a stink as they gave about how hard that would be to write network code for again and a replication code, it is one of the main factors that the majority of the community didn't buy it. That was a huge thing. Like I know like I have like literally a list of 5 personal friends that will not buy that game and never did simply because it didn't have co-op. They really
Hmm.
wanted to play co-op with me. So, yep. I would be like, do you do you regret that?
I was a little
'Cause
bummed to find that out, actually. Because I do actually enjoy a single player when it's not single player. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
enjoy
they
playing the
probably could
campaign.
have quadrupled their sales, Just throwing it out there if you're listening.
Yeah, hopefully we do get them on the podcast, and I do get to ask them some questions. Because it seems like
Overload 2? When? No, I'm just
it,
kidding.
shoot, I
Not
wouldn't
gonna happen.
I wouldn't be
Probably not
opposed to
gonna
that.
happen.
Um, actually, uh, let's see. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and it's sort of related. It's like Overload 2 or whatever. But have you seen the progress on a Centroid?
I have. He's doing great work. Varen is an amazing programmer. I I just wish I had the gumption and the energy to actually make a map for him. I'm sure I will at some point. I just need to really sit down and get nitty gritty with the UE4 editor.
Oh, so he has his own editor for a Centroid?
Well, no, it's like Unreal Engine is the editor, you know. So you can open up
Oh,
Unreal Engine,
gotcha.
and he has an environment. So I guess you can call that the editor, where he strips down the game down to like a couple of icons and stuff, just like what an editor would look like. And he has a couple of like he added a cube tool you can get off of the UV4 marketplace. So
Definitely gonna have to check that out. For the people who aren't tracking, Centroid is another successor to Descent. You know, it's just a fan-made successor.
y-
It's pretty nice. It follows the D2 format way closer than D1. Um,
for sure,
but it basically it's like Tron. It's like Tron Descent. It's very
that's
neon, but
that's a interesting way to describe it.
I
I guess
mean,
aesthetically,
yeah.
but
I mean, I think
there's
it's very bright.
it's very bright. But funny you should mention Tron. If you want a real Tron Descent experience, look up Neon XSZ.
Neon
It's a
XSC.
yeah, it is a it's a 6 Degrees of Freedom roguelike game,
Oh,
kind
it's
of
a
like
game.
yeah, it's a roguelike on Steam. That's very much like Descent, and it's
Huh.
basically Tron. Like it's neon everywhere, and it's you know it's randomly generated like most roguelikes because like it's the
Wow.
genre.
Yeah. Definitely want to check that out. Neon
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
XXC.
XSC, I think, something like that.
I actually haven't tried out. What was that other game? There was another one.
Sublevel Zero.
Sublevel. Holy crap, dude! You read my freaking mind. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're talking about roguelikes, so that's the only other roguelike 60OF I can think of.
There's a few. I mean, I know that they're making there's another six off that just got started. Uh, that just
Oh,
went into alpha. Let me find it. It's on r/descent Discord server, but it's like Star Fox and Descent had a baby. So
interesting.
it's actually really cool. There's very little information on it since it's so early, but um, man, I wish I had that on my person as far as the video, but it is really cool. It's like a whole new thing. There's bots, and then it's kind of like Star Wars, you know, Tie Fighter, if anyone is familiar with that N64 game. But
Interesting.
it's like a Rogue Fighter. That's what it was on the Nintendo 64 or something like that. But it's similar to that, Star Fox and Descent. It's like all in between that. It's 360 degree freedom, and you're fighting through. And Nalexi just made like a Descent successor. He released it on Steam recently.
Really
Yeah, it's more 2D than it is 3D.
interesting.
So it's very different, but it's very heavily inspired by Descent.
I think I remember hearing about this 2D project at some point.
Yeah, he's been working on it for years. I remember having a conversation with him years and years ago, and I think it's called Tiltfire. It's what it's called, Tiltfire on Steam.
Interesting.
He actually named it Tiltfire after one of his more popular maps on Descent. Very, very proud of that map, and for good reason. It is a very good map, and he actually still plays Descent to this day. I saw a screenshot of him today, so
Nice.
very,
I haven't
very
talked to him
cool.
in forever.
He's quite interesting. He definitely carries some of that Descent nostalgia around with the community. Put out a lot
For
of cool
sure.
stuff, but let's see. And then there's one more. I know I'm missing it. Oh yeah, Geocore. Geocore is another
Oh,
big one.
yeah, Geocore.
Geocore's is not as far as the others though. I think it made it pretty far, but I think the developer he gave up a little bit in there. Um, it is a
It's
fun game.
understandable.
I mean, it's hard to make a game, from
Yeah,
the ground
yeah.
up, especially close to Descent. But yeah.
But yeah. I mean, there's a couple other six off games not worth mentioning, but um, yeah.
Definitely true. I tell everybody like Descent was so ahead of the game. It was so ahead of all the other games in the market, especially at the time that it were released. Sure, it wasn't as pretty and non-pixelated as today, but it was still way ahead of the game.
Yeah, it was the first game with I want to say it's the first 3D game with multi-texture with vector lighting on top of that. Would I would consider dynamic vector lighting, considering like um, things like flares modified in real time and stuff.
Would you say it was like the first 6 degree freedom game?
No. I would have to give that credit to the Microsoft Pilot Sim stuff.
Oh God, yeah, that's right.
Because while the planes themselves might not be 6 degrees of freedom, I believe there's like a like an observer mode or something something like that where you can just like fly. And then there's some other games before Descent that were trying to remember the name of it. But it was a very simple like I don't even think the game had textures. It was just like polygons. I'm completely blanking on the name. And I think it was a 4DOF game, if anything.
4DOF. I know Nintendo had something like that on the what was it? What was the red console where everything was? It was like the first VR ever.
The Virtual Boy.
The
Oh
Virtual
God,
Boy. Oh, you don't like the Virtual Boy? It's the greatest console ever.
it burned my eyes out.
Yeah, I know they had it was Star Fox. They had Star Fox on the Virtual Boy, which was really cool.
Yeah,
But I think it was after Descent.
that was just yeah. The fact that they didn't even like you expect like oh it's the first true 3D game right after Doom with being a 2.5D game or whatever. You expect it to have still cut corners like sprites and stuff for enemies, but no, it's just full 3D enemies. Uh, like most of the weapons are full 3D. There's not many sprite-based objects other than like the hostages. Like of course they're not going to model out a whole person in a '90s game, but
So what let's see. What would you like to see added to Descent? Whether it be retro, modern, Descent 2, what would you like to see added?
I would like there to finally be a mainline port with CTFC, like classic CTF, which is technically a misnomer because Descent had CTF before even Doom had CTF because Doom's CTF was a mod, not an official game mode. Um, yeah, it's just like the original. Like, it's been fun for a while, but it's not CTF. It's round robin or not round robin. It's Easter egg hunt. You're having a random flag. It's a team based Easter egg hunt game where the other person's egg spawns in a random location, and that's not really engaging me. I mean, I get why some people enjoy that, but it's not for me. So I would love for somebody to finally like Jinx did it, and somebody else I forgot who attempted to do it. It would just be nice to have it in like either a main retro version or if people do adopt Orange version, if it's in Orange version, something like that. And I guess the second one would be like Monster Ball, but that's not as important as classic CTF to me.
I know one thing you mentioned a long time ago, and I've looked into it multiple times, but just the ability to have outline pilots, or at least clearer to see pyros.
Yeah, I've
Because
already
you're
done
right,
that.
yeah, I've seen you do that before. But that was local side, right? That was like with a file.
No, it's that's in the map. So all I have to do is use my map and play it. All I have to do is make a CTFC map, and then you'll see outlines.
Hmm.
No programming needed.
I get back to me with that. I'd like to see that. But
Yeah, for sure.
would definitely be pretty interesting. Another good example of you know freaking Blarget pushing the game before it was cool. I mean, who else is making custom weapons, right? Who else is making custom stuff like
There's
you
some,
are, you know, man?
there's some people.
Are
I'm
there?
not the only one doing custom weapons and stuff. Yeah, I mean not maybe not anymore. Maybe not. People are not as interested in that. But like I said earlier, Dark Flame Wolf made a couple of custom weapons in her maps. So definitely check out her D2 maps if you want to see some crazy, wacky custom weapons.
I definitely will. I definitely will. But yeah, I think that just about covers it, man. I mean, I talked about everything that I had talking points, and is there anything you want to talk about? Maybe
All
any
right.
final comments?
I don't know. Just I hope this community doesn't die. That's all.
Oh my
Uh,
God!
yeah, that's just
Damn!
like I'm hopeful it keeps going. You know, maybe I should have reworded it, but like it's just
Please don't die.
I love this game, dude. And it's weird that I'm so attached to something so old, but it's just yeah. I can see myself playing this in my retirement for
Yeah.
sure. So
No, but Blarget's totally on it. For the audience, or people listening, whoever it may be, I know a lot of you come from r/Reddit, and then I know I've done this whole spiel before, but this community is much bigger than people realize. You know, the amount of people who come together, make projects happen, the people who make this game continue on living. You know, it's all a orchestrated, you know, effort from people who care about this game, who've come together in a concentrated community. And Blarget is one of the huge proponents for keeping this game alive, and that's why I'm just so thrilled to have him on and have the opportunity to have the conversation and archive it for those to listen to. If you're interested in map making, of course, I'm sure Blarget would totally be down for helping you out. Or if you just want to get, you know, welcome to the community. There are so many people that would love to introduce you, and we need more players. We need more people like Terminal who come out of nowhere, make maps, and change the game in small ways. You know, you could be a part of the future. You know, you could be a part of what Descent becomes, and we're more than welcome to have you. But it's definitely true. This game is definitely on one of its last few legs, right? But yeah, that being said, it's definitely propelled by people like me, you know, who are younger, who want to see new things for the game, or even those who may be inspired by listening or watching. Of course, all the appropriate links for getting your journey started with Descent lives and exists in every single video and description of both Twitch and YouTube, so you're more than welcome to explore there. Upcoming projects like Project D and stuff like that, you can go over the news again. But again, it's really nice to have you on, Blarget.
Yeah, I appreciate being on.
But yeah, thanks for listening, and if you want to learn more about Blarget, you can go on DMXA or sectorgame.com and check out some of his maps. But other than that, thank you for listening to episode 3 of Proxy Podcast.